So, as you guys know, search has changed, and your customers and your clients, they're searching on things like ChatGPT and AI overviews now. And I built a framework, and I want to share that framework with you on this video here today. And I'll break down why this shift is critical, like right now, critical. The key metrics you need to watch, how you can implement this on your client's website or your website, and how you can become more visible on ChatGPT. And I'm really narrowing in on ChatGPT for this because I have found that it's the one that you can ask anybody on the planet and they will go, "Yeah, I use ChatGPT," or "I'm familiar with ChatGPT." And I'm getting real results out of this. Like clients are making money because they're showing up in ChatGPT. So I've spent time today thinking about a real customer that I'm working with. I put it into a nice little presentation for you guys, and I'm going to show you how to use tools like Splashdsh, which is my new tool, citation management, and smart content publishing to keep you ahead. So let's get into it. So the presentation's name is, you guessed it, AI visibility. So we're going to be talking all about AI visibility today with real examples. And these are real customers that pay me money to do this for them. So I want you to put some respect on it because I'm not hiding behind the scenes here. I'm kind of just showing you the real deal. So I want to get into the real deal here. So to get started, I'm going to be using a couple of different tools that I want to just say up front because I get asked all the time what tools I use. The first one is going to be Splashdsh. As a huge disclaimer, that is my tool, and I highly recommend you check it out. The second one is Yext for citation management. You can use any citation management service. This video does not have anything to do with these tools specifically, but I just want to make this clear. For content management system, which is how we build websites, I use Duda. And then we're going to be talking about Google Sheets and Airtable to manage content and scale content, as you're going to see, which is a critical component of scaling your visibility in AI search results. So let's get started. Searches of AI are exploding right now. This is a trends chart for the term AI SEO. It is going absolutely bonkers. And so if I started in 2018, that's when I started doing digital marketing, when I started development marketing, I put my LLC together. If I had known this for that category at the time, which was Facebook ads and e-commerce and things like that, I would have spent all of my energy there. And so I'm trying to send this energy to you. Hey, Mr. on the other side, Mrs. on the other side, it's time to think about AI SEO. It is exploding. Every chart that you check, people are curious, how can I show up in the LLM? So that's why I'm making this video. And critically, visibility reporting becomes critical. And that KPI is how often your brand is mentioned in AI overviews. Now, the golden opportunity here is that it's really easy to do for local. And I'm going to talk a lot about how to do that. So by the end of this video, you can just go out and start doing this for your local clients or yourself. And it's really not that difficult to do. And in fact, you're probably showing up a lot more than you think. But if you don't have a visibility report to check that, then it's going to be very difficult to actually understand if it's working or not. So this is Splashdsh and pulling a visibility report for the client that we're going to be talking about today. We analyzed 22 out of 25 prompts. We did a very small test subject for the video, and they showed up 88% of the time for their given category, which in this case is basement finishing. They do roofing and siding in the summer, and then they do basement remodeling and basement finishing in the winter, so they can stay in a nice house, stay nice and warm, have the homeowner give them a little hot cup of coffee, a little hot Joe, and then they can do the remodeling work they have to do inside. So the basic SEO principles that have always happened in the past is still critical. As you can see on this actual picture, LLMs are referencing specific URLs specific to the viewer's query. So in Splashdsh, when we searched 25 prompts, one of them was, are there any basement companies near Wolcott CT? You can see that JPT's response linked to these citations, which were the direct website. And you can see that the URL path of that actual page is exactly one of the keyword phrases that the user typed in. So semantically, nothing is really changing with how you're doing your SEO strategy. You've just got to be aware of how to analyze this information, how to take action on it, because it's really not changing that much. So with that being said, if we continue to look at the presentation, you'll see that content scalability is absolutely critical right now. This query was, what basement finishing companies serve Wolcott and Waterbury? And you can see that the Waterbury page specifically showed up for this query. So if we want to have positive LLM mentions, positive visibility, we may want to consider every single type of way someone's going to search us and create a dedicated page on our website with that URL with quality content And I'm going to show you my exact process of doing so today at scale, but also making sure you're hitting home the points that are absolutely critical. So LLMs are checking your URL path. They are checking the content of that page. They are trying to serve, they're trying to generate to the user the most relevant piece of information in front of that user right then and there. Now, you really in this world need to pay close attention to not mentioned, quote unquote. And these are queries where you did not show up when the user typed it into ChatGPT. So for these two queries as an example, was eco-friendly and which ones have A plus ratings with the Better Business Bureau. Nowhere on our website does it say we have A plus ratings. So that's something we're going to add. And they are on the Better Business Bureau. So that is a key citation that they're currently being mentioned on. And also, we don't have any mentions of eco-friendly. So if we want to start showing up for these two prompts and we want to improve our LLM visibility, we may consider adding those two pieces of content directly to our website, of course, if the client actually does that service. So LLMs are going by how often you're being mentioned. And that to me is success, because if someone randomly decides to go on the ChatGPT tonight, which I'll show you some very interesting information later, and they randomly start to say, hey, I need my basement redone. I need some options in Woolkit. And one of these prompts go to find our clients. I want to make sure that they're being shown as much as possible. So I'm using ChatGPT visibility, LLM visibility reports like this. And there's thousands of tools that you can go out and get to do this to really understand what we're showing up for and what we're not showing up for. And the cool thing about this is the game has reversed. We used to think that these citations like Home U, which is one of the key ones that are showing up when we do a GPT visibility report for this client in their specific area. And now you're like, oh my God, I've got to get my customer listed on this. So a lot of the visibility reports, a lot of the ChatGPT research that you do, you should really start to consider which citations are mentioning to the customer. This was a citation that was mentioned in a lot of the different queries as a response. So it's a citation that we're going to show to the customer, improve to the customer. And so as we move forward, we may consider sponsoring or paying to get listed on these citations. For example, our customer is on the Better Business Bureau, but when they search basement remodeling, they're nowhere to be found on that list, primarily because, as you can see, their category is roofing contractors. And I've showed you guys some data in the past where when I did searches for best moving companies in a certain area, a citation that was showing up was actually a citation that we were sponsoring. So ChatGPT might, in fact, be looking at what the first result is, regardless if it's sponsored or not, and analyzing that page 1 through 10 based on the order of the content of that page. So sponsoring citations actually becomes something that's critical for you to do as an ongoing LLM strategy. So if you have a citation website or if you have a news network or anything along those lines, now's your time to shine. If you're working with customers, you may want to think about which citations are showing up the most when you do a GPT visibility analysis. And then you may want to start focusing on those citations as much as possible. Now, of course, your citation accuracy across online listings has become the most important thing in the world right now. And that's why we use tools like Yext to be able to simulate that and to be able to synthesize that. But if you're working for your own business and you want to save on the cost, you don't have to do a service like that. You can do it yourself. I like to avoid the manual spreadsheets. We have over 300 clients. There is just no way I'm going to spend time doing that. So if you use a citation management service, I've heard of a couple of good ones like Synup, and then there's Bright Local, and then there's SEMrush. There's a lot of these different tools that do that. Personally, my favorite is Yext, only because they're one of the first players to do it. And I'm telling you right now, we get good results out of them. Clients raise in rankings, they show up in LLMs, and we optimize the client's website through this information. And I'm going to show you exactly how to work this into a process that you can use for your business or your client's business. So, execution framework here is audit the current content and citations, find out what citations are being mentioned on a scan through the LLMs in your marketplace. You may want to simulate 100 different results, see which citations are mentioned the most. If you want to use technology, get a visibility tracking tool, and you want to publish and promote new content consistently, and then track AI visibility and lead with your clients that conversation often, that AI visibility is something that they've really got to start paying attention to. And what I found is until I've showed them, hey, this customer came to you because of ChatGPT, they don't really pay attention to it. They think it's this big, mysterious, mythical thing. But in reality, they're addicted to it. You're addicted to it. Their customers are addicted to it. So we've got to be able to make sure that we show up as much as possible. So let's move on. So that is the beginning of why you should be paying attention to this now. And so clients are being discovered in AI. This is something that I got literally this week. It was 4 different types of customers. One was an insulation company, one was a med spa, one was a dentist, this one was a manufacturer. So everybody is on ChatGPT looking for different options. And in fact, today they just announced that they are doing one-click purchasing directly inside of ChatGPT. What does that mean for local businesses? What does that mean for e-commerce stores? What does that mean for all of these different types of industries that are currently relying on the internet to gather new customers? I'll tell you what it means. It means you need to be paying more attention to this. And so, as you can see, a client closed an $85,000 job through ChatGPT simply because I took the time to do the optimizations that I'm going to show you in this video to get them more results. Pretty insane. And most people think, oh, my target customer doesn't use ChatGPT. That is ridiculous to think. This is an example of one of our clients showing up for the term electrocoders. There's probably 5 people in the world that are going to search for this keyword phrase, and it's happening in ChatGPT. So I wanted to make that point. Now, the question that I want to ask you, and why this is really important, especially if you're doing this for clients, especially if you're doing this as a service, which I don't know, but I think a lot of my audience is. I would love to know if you're a business or if you're doing this as a service. Let me know in the comments. But would you take $10,000 now or $126,000 over the course of 7 years? Really think about that. For me, it's $126,000 over the course of 7 years. I can wait. $10,000 is not going to change my life. Although my living expenses really aren't that high, my rent is about $13.90 per month, so it's really not that bad. I keep things really nimble and really small and reinvest. However, this is what it could mean for you to start doing LLM optimizations. If you keep a customer for 7 years, this is an example of a customer that we have had since the beginning. Now we're pitching them LLM optimizations and continuing that way. You're going to make a lot more money just by focusing the conversation on what's new, which is the LLM optimizations. So ask yourself, will they rank? Is your customer in a perfect situation, or is your business in a perfect situation to actually rank inside of the LLMs? Well, I'm going to show you a simple formula of how I increase my confidence, or how I say there is no way you're going to rank for LLMs for this. And that is with something called a confidence score. So this is something that we're building directly inside of Splashdsh, which will basically allow you to run a competitive analysis report that shows you all of your competitors in a certain area and what the confidence score would be to rank in that certain area. So I'll show you a really good example of what this might look like. So this is a report example that you can see here. And really what you're seeing here is you're seeing a couple of key metrics that I found are absolutely critical to rank in the LLMs. The organic traffic that's coming to the website, the activity of the website, the domain authority, the Google reviews, the keywords, and the domain age. So because of this business getting 2 of the key metrics really high up, which is domain authority, and for those of you that don't know, that is how likely a search engine is to give you traffic. Now think of it in terms of LLMs. If your domain authority is higher than the market average, in this case, it's being compared to 8 competitors in that local average. And if your domain age is older, ChatGPT has been known to send traffic to domains that are older. So this business, when we did our analysis, or when the technology did its analysis per se, it got a 50 out of 100 confidence score. That means there's a 50% chance that you're going to get business from ChatGPT in this area. And it's a simple calculation that I found that works really well. Now, for those of you selling this, and for those of you preparing this information, you've got to answer the question, can I get this person results? Because if you can't, and you say you can, you're a thief. You're a scam artist. There's nothing you can do about it. You're telling them something that's not true. And we've all been there. We've all thought we can get somebody results, or you're going to get results through an ads campaign, and it doesn't work. That's why we build confidence score, because if it's low, I won't pitch SEO. If it's moderate, like the 50 out of 100, there's a pretty good chance they're going to get results. If it's really high, we pulled some today that were extremely high, you're going to get them a lot of results, and I'm going to promise them the entire boat. For example, I'll show you one right now. That's just a quick example. Develomark, my agency in the local area, we are a 90 out of 100. So if we turned on advertising, and if we simply just said, hey, we do this in this area because of the metrics, because of our brand, because of our authority, because of our domain age, we're going to show up in the LLMs. The sad reality is we don't really do much for our actual agency, which we should. So confidence score is critical. And the way that we find this information, and you can find this information manually too, is comparing it against the competition by market average. So if there's 8 basement finishing companies in this exact area, how does my client stack up to them in the most key metrics, and filtering that based on the competition. Really critical component to look at the key metrics that are actually driving this. And I've drilled down those key metrics to a couple of the most critical ones: traffic, domain authority, reviews, keywords, and domain age. So for the selection that I'm going to be showing you in this video, the couple ones that are there are there is the traffic, which is really low for organic, domain authority, reviews are low, but the domain age is high. So this customer could be in a good position to rank well inside of the LLMs, but we're really not going to find out until we do the work. So let's talk about their actual website. So their website is exactly where GPT is going to find this unique information. And the reason why I'm saying unique in quotations is because ChatGPT loves referencing unique custom information. And so this is a simple report that I ran that scanned all of their Google reviews and told me what the most important things about this business was based on real happy customers. And one of the most important things was the actual owner. I found that on average, when somebody leaves a review, they mentioned the owner. He came up in 26 times of the conversations next to the work that he does, the recommendations they would give, the professionalism, the high quality, the job they're a little skeptical on, the kitchen, the crew, the projects, the roof, etc. So this is going to guide the contents that I'm going to put on the homepage of the website. So if I'm really thinking about the data here, I'm trying to give the LLMs, I'm trying to give the consumer exactly what they want to see for this specific business in this specific area. Now, to flip that, when I actually go to the customer's website, as you can see here, one of the main things that I do is I really try to call out everything that I just mentioned in that sentiment analysis. So as you scroll through the page, you'll actually see that there's a big section of the owner here. And I do this because I'm following what the customers find valuable from this business without having to interview the business or just utilizing technology. So with that being said, you can also do this in a marketplace. So this right here is going to allow me to analyze the entire marketplace of all basement finishing companies in that area. And here's what the users recommend and what they value. So these are the terms that I'm going to focus on when I'm creating that page, because this is what people generally positively mention when they're working with this business in that area. Now, I want to give you two perspectives on this. One is the person that comes into a conversation and has no idea. And if you're verticalized, that's great, meaning you work with the same business over and over again. You come into a conversation and you just throw things at the wall and you have no freaking reason as to why things are being mentioned. Or you come in with the data, you show them their visibility, you show them the gaps, and then you work to improve that. You're going to get the deal, you're going to get the sale, you're going to work with that customer a much longer term if you can present this information. So the sentiment, AI values sentiment. They love gathering information. It loves gathering information that people like. So focus on adding sentiment onto the website. That's a key strategy that we did to get this business more leads. And then, of course, the same thing here, the traditional part of SEO, this does not change. High search volume terms are absolutely critical to get the business showing up at the top of the search results. Any keyword research tool will work for this. And so when we talk about actually optimizing their website, you're going to see that the SEO values have not changed, but the amount we check visibility, the amount we add them to citations, the quality of the information that's added on the citations are really what's going to move the needle for when somebody does an LLM search for a localized business. And let's go through the actual optimizations. So follow the traditional headings directly on the website. LLMs still look at this information in a few different ways. And so it's looking for the H1 tag to identify what the page is about. Then incorporate unique information. I talked a little bit about why LLMs value unique information, and that's simply because it's from you. And so if somebody's looking for a basement finishing company, as I showed you in the past, they're going to look to reference unique things. And with that unique information comes pricing. Now, there's a lot of debate on the internet, especially if you've read books like They Ask You Answer, or if you're creating calculator tools, etc. Discussing pricing on a website is one of those things where we do specifically for LLM visibility. And we always give ranges for this stuff because a lot of the times if you search what something costs, a lot of users are going to go into pricing. They're going to search pricing. They're going to research that information. So if you're the first brand to talk about that prior to other brands, you're more likely to get a head start of that information and be able to be served in front of the customer. So don't shy away from pricing. And this is the beauty of LLMs now, is that you've created a situation where you can create this level of content at scale, as I'm going to discuss a little bit after. And add healthy text headings, right? The principles here don't change. Add headings, add internal links, make sure that you're creating as many optimized internal links for relevance as possible when you're working with customers on a long-term basis, so the crawlability of the website continues to improve. So as you can see, when we get leads from this customer and when we get leads from any customer that we work with, we see people saying they want to make man caves, they want to make guest rooms, they want to make entertainment rooms, they want to do kids playroom, they want to do flooring and walls. And when I show you a couple of the examples of leads that come in through this website, you're going to see that people are actually resonating with this information because they're asking for it. So when they ask for it, that's my way of doing keyword research. That's my way of getting information from the business, is actually seeing and listening to their leads and then making recommendations based on that. So you want to use that sentiment that I mentioned before in the actual messaging. If the sentiment analysis that I showed you before, homeowners are valuing the owner's approval, experienced project manager, clear job scope, working within the budget, I'm going to highlight that text directly on the page so that when an LLM crawls my page, or when somebody goes to the website and they resonate with it, they're more likely to turn into a conversion. Because it's great to show up in an LLM, it's even greater to build a relationship and get an actual customer. So we're using the customer sentiment, we're using the sentiment of the market based on analyzing thousands of reviews, and we're using that to our benefit directly on the website's copy. So with that being said, the last step is to add rich FAQ content. This can be done by just doing keyword research of what people are asking, embedding that FAQ directly on the page, adding FAQ schema so that the LLMs can see what questions you're addressing directly on the page. If you're making any sort of service page, service area page, town page, product page, no matter what you're creating, really sit down, do the keyword research to figure out what people are asking, get the keyword research from your customers, simply interview them and just ask them what common questions come from doing this, and then put that into a simple accordion that people can read and add FAQ schema. It's a major proponent of ranking in the LLMs. Now, once we have one page, so for this website as an example, I'm going to show you the one page that we have, and then I'm going to show you how we replicate this at scale so that we show up for everything. So as you can see, this is the page that's currently on the website that I just showed you. It's working well. It's ranking well. If you type it into Google, you'll see it. If you type it into ChatGPT, you'll see it. Now, that doesn't mean that we stop at just this page. If you look at the website sitemap and you go to .sitemap.xml, you'll see that there are a ton of basement finishing pages on the back end of the website. The reason why we're doing that is because we want to increase our chances of when we run an AI visibility report that somebody is going to find one of our internal pages and they're going to contact the company. As you guys know, to get a basement redone costs a lot of money. And so one of these simple pages, one of these simple LLM results can yield a lot of results for the client. So the way that we do that and the way that we handle it is these pages are called dynamic pages in the Duda editor. And a dynamic page really keeps the same design, as you can see, but AI changes the text for that specific area. It writes a custom URL structure. It writes the custom content, or I'm sorry, it keeps the URL structure, but it writes custom content. And the way that that works is we do that through a Google Sheet or an Airtable database. So we have a lot of the content directly optimized in here for the structure that we're going to work with it. And then that creates a bunch of different pages directly on the website, which is going to give us a lot higher of an AI visibility score. So in the beginning, when I showed you guys the AI visibility score of this company, you saw that they were very high on average. And that's because we're increasing the content production of the website, but we're coming across what our goals are. Now, this can be challenging because some businesses have a lot of business verticals, and that's why it's important for you to focus, right? I could do this for all of their services, and they do so many different things. But in this winter, we're really focusing on basement finishing. This is work that we did a little bit earlier this year. So they're going to reap the reward directly through the wintertime as they start using this strategy. So assessing the performance, right? If you're going to be doing this for anybody, you want to be able to assess what's working and what's not. The best way to assess performance is to run visibility reports often. And this allows you to look at all of their business verticals, all of their different categories, all of their different domains, competitor domains, whatever it is that you're trying to do, but run visibility reports often to see on average how high you are and how low you are, depending on your sample size. As I mentioned, this sample size is only 25. With Splashdasher specifically, you can go up to 100. Other tools, you might be able to go a little bit higher than that. But really, all the visibility report is going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to search at scale in a simple tool. Once you have the visibility report, I recommend looking at them often for what you're being mentioned for and what you're not being mentioned for. This is an example of a customer that we're working with that's being mentioned 74 out of 99 prompts for the Brantford, Connecticut area. And the cool thing about Splashdsh is what it does is it actually localizes your queries. So it makes you look good in your conversations if your client's doing well, but it also keeps everything as localized as possible. ChatGPT does not natively have your localized information. So for those of you that have done position tracking in the past, you know how frustrating it is to type a keyword and get no data. So all of the prompts that we've trained Splashdsh on knows that when you put in your business information, it'll ask questions about that physical location to give you a realistic visibility report. So going forward, I want to show you guys the results and how to assess performance. Probably the first way to assess performance is actually just looking at the leads that are coming in through the website. I mentioned to you guys the page that we had on the previous website where there was a page for Playroom for Kids. And look at that. 1 hour ago, we received a lead for the Playroom for Kids. Same thing here, getting contact forms directly from the website. And the final one, this one was today. Then that's why I'm making this video, because I thought it was so awesome. We got a call from Search GPT. Now, some will say the call was an automation. Some will say that it was an agent calling on the behalf of a customer. Some will say that CallRail picked up the source here and the source was ChatGPT. I'm not sure what it was. However, this is the world we're stepping into. We're stepping into a world where people are going to have AIs just call different businesses. So if you don't have AI visibility in that area, your business is going to act like it doesn't exist and it's not going to get the opportunity to sell a new customer. And your clients want this really, really badly. And so I recommend that you start taking advantage of that. But I thought that that was really interesting. And the last way to assess brand volume, or I'm sorry, assess LLM visibility is your branded search volume. Is it going up? Is it going down? Many times, as you saw here, the LLM was served a tracking phone number, and that's why I got this notification. So many times, people won't actually go to your website from the LLM. They won't actually click through. They'll just take that information and then do what they want with it. They might search Google. They might search your name. They might go to your Instagram. So holistic marketing is becoming significantly important in the next couple of years because visibility is more important than clicks now. We're living in a world where this metric is actually becoming more important than the clicks that go through to your website. Now, if you're doing paid ads, that's completely different. We're not talking about paid ads. We're talking specifically about visibility. If people are not even visiting your website, the key metric that you need to be paying attention to as a marketing professional is branded search volume. Whether it's branded clicks, branded impressions, LLM visibility, how often is your brand being shown in front of people? That is the metric that we are really, really looking at. So, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to get on today's video. I really appreciate it. If you have comments, leave them down below and I'll try to answer them as much as I can. Thank you guys so much for watching.